Hey, what is up, guys? I would usually start off by saying I hope you're all having an amazing day, but chances are, if you're watching this video, your day probably started off with a helping of disappointment. And obviously, the reason for that is because the RTX 3080 sold out in under a minute, and pretty much none of the sales were going to people who actually wanted the card for their own personal use. As I am sure you guys probably already know, when the RTX 3080 launched earlier today, or probably yesterday by the time this video gets out, scalpers immediately went out and bought every one of them with the use of bots just to go online and buy up the stock. And then after that, sell it at a ridiculously high price on eBay. And I'm sure you guys have probably already seen that. You probably are well aware of the ridiculous price that these people are asking for these cards, which is just insane. And I am happy to say that there is a lot of people out there actually trolling them on eBay, purchasing it for $50,000 and then not actually paying, because obviously you can create a fake account on eBay, bid on something, and then not even pay for it because the payment comes after the actual winning of the bid. And then at that point, it really only just causes a little bit more hassle for people who are listing these items, because then they just have to start over and relist. But at the same time, if they do that, what they're going to end up getting is just the same exact thing. If people keep just trolling these people, likely they're going to get pretty fed up, because the likelihood is they're not going to be able to get one single good auction out there. And I'm not saying that I'm promoting this, but I really don't have anything against it either. So that's my own personal view on it. I don't think people who use like bots and stuff to scalp items, or scalping items in general, isn't a practice that I support in any way. So in my own personal opinion, I could kind of care less about how much of a hassle this is going to be for them, because truth be told, what they're doing is kind of shitty in the first place. And there is obviously a bunch of conspiracy theories out there about why this is, and I think a lot of it is pretty true. But first thing I want to talk about is that Nvidia did respond to this issue, and I'm going to go ahead and just read out the actual entire response from them and then talk a little bit more about it. So Nvidia said this morning we saw unprecedented demand for the GeForce RTX 3080 at global retailers, including the Nvidia online store. At 6 a.m. Pacific, we attempted to push the Nvidia store live. Despite preparation, the Nvidia store was inundated with traffic and encountered an error. We were able to resolve the issue and sales began registering normally. To stop bots and scalpers on it, the Nvidia store, we're doing everything humanly possible, including manually reviewing orders to get these cards in the hands of legitimate customers. Over 50 major global retailers have inventory at 6 a.m. Pacific. Our Nvidia team and partners are shipping more RTX 3080 cards every day to retailers. We apologize to our customers for this morning experience. So that was the entire statement from Nvidia. And to be honest with you, when I heard Nvidia responding to the issue, I expected it to be a pretty shitty response. However, and I will be honest, I'm in no way, shape, or form an Nvidia fanboy, but I actually thought this statement was pretty good. If it's really truthful and meaningful, maybe not. But when I heard this statement, I actually thought it was a pretty good one. So that kind of surprised me a little bit. And one thing I really want to focus on is that part where they said to stop bots and scalpers on the Nvidia store, that they're going to be manually reviewing orders. Two important things there. Obviously, it says the Nvidia store, so this isn't going to be anything with like Best Buy or Micro Center or anything like that, which is obvious. I mean, Nvidia can't really do much about how other retailers handle the situation. But that part where they said they're going to manually review orders, that means that a lot of these people who maybe use bots and auto ordered like as much as they could off the Nvidia website, Nvidia might be going through each order individually and saying, hey, this guy is obviously a scalper. We're going to go ahead and cancel his order and relist it to get it in the hands of somebody who actually wants this card, not just trying to resell it at a profit. One thing that is being said that it's pretty possible to be legitimate is that Nvidia purposely had a short supply launch in order to bump up the demand for their cards and also bump up the prices. But it's probably very likely that they did not expect the scalpers to be this bad. Like, pretty close to nobody was actually, like, no legitimate customer was able to pick up this card, which is one of the reasons why it's such a big deal right now. So that's probably one of the reasons why they're going to be working very hard to try and fix this issue. God, I cannot talk. Issue. And they could have really kind of prevented it with using things like reCAPTCHA on their website or any other form of anti-bot techniques that they just didn't have apparently. And they are, and according to their little response that they had there, they are going to try and review these orders and hopefully fix some of this issue. But still, it's a pretty big deal right now. I mean, even retailers were sold out like immediately. Best Buy, Micro Center, everybody who pretty much carries these cards immediately sold out. And it seems like the only people who actually were legitimate customers and able to get this card were customers who were able to like show up at Micro Center early in the morning and were able to get it out of the actual physical store, because some retailers, not all of them, but some retailers put some of their product out on the sales floor instead of having that product also available to sale online at the same time, if that makes sense. Best way I can probably put it to try and clarify what I was trying to say there is that a lot of retailers, the way they have it is that online orders take precedent. So even if there's something on the sales floor and then like as soon as somebody clicks buy now online, they just take it off the sales floor. So some retailers don't do that, and I'm assuming Micro Center didn't do that, which is why I think some people from Micro Center were actually able to pick up the card where a ton of other people obviously weren't. So those are probably the only legitimate customers out there who are able to actually pick up one of these RTX 3080 cards, and that's just insane to think about. Like it's crazy. And to a certain extent, you probably wonder about, besides bad PR, why these retailers and Nvidia would care. They're still selling their card. They're making tons of money. Selling out is a good thing for them. But again, the bad press might be enough for them to try and remedy this issue. I think with Nvidia, especially with the upcoming big Navi launch coming out probably next month, or at least towards the before the end of the year, because obviously we know the actual presentations next month. I don't know if the card's going to be released next month, but either way, Nvidia right now, I don't think they're trying to look towards the long run. And even though right now in the short term they sold out of their cards, which is good for their profits, they probably realize that that's not good for their long-term strategy. So they're probably trying to fix this issue, which I'm happy about, because obviously I want these cards to go to people who actually want them and are legitimate customers, not scalpers trying to screw over the system and everybody else. I want to kind of touch on one more thing, and this might be a bit of a controversial opinion, but this is why pre-orders are not as bad as people say. I know a ton of YouTubers who are constantly telling their audience, don't ever pre-order anything. It's a terrible thing. It's only for businesses and there's no pro for actual consumers. And truth be told, it can be very beneficial for customers. Let me quickly go over obviously some of the negatives. You're basically being a first adopter, which means you are going to be beta testing the product. If you don't wait for actual reviews from legitimate sources, as well as benchmarks from legitimate sources. Again, I cannot talk. I don't know why I keep screwing up my words, but you are a first adopter. So you are essentially taking that risk of having, drivers not ready at launch and then having a terrible experience and so on. But that's a risk you take whenever you pre-order something. And I think as consumers, we have to kind of take that responsibility on ourselves. We understand that that is the risk that we're taking, but we're still choosing to pre-order because we get the benefit of reserving a copy that we're absolutely going to get, or at least pretty close to certainly going to get. Sometimes there's bonuses that go with it, which I don't really care for. I hope pre-order bonuses kind of go away because I think that they're kind of stupid. As a kid, I loved them, but now I start to realize that if you don't pre-order the game and you're like a completionist and there's this like stupid armor piece that you can't get because it's a pre-order only, it's kind of dumb to think about it that way. But so yeah, not only are you reserving a copy that you'll actually get, on top of that, it obviously makes the entire launch of a product so much smoother in a lot of ways. And I'm talking not just about graphics cards here, but games as well. And again, I understand there's some negatives. You're beta testing it for everybody else. You're basically being the hamster, the little test hamster. But with that being said, if you're okay with that, like if you're someone like me, you're okay with that, and you understand there still is some expectations out of the company, like you expect the car to work, otherwise, or the game to be complete to a certain extent, otherwise they're just opening themselves up to a class action lawsuit like Fallout 76. I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with that, but they have a full-on, Bethesda has a full-on class action lawsuit against them because of how bad that game is. So yeah, even though there's some negatives, and I know a lot of people say, hey, it's only beneficial to the companies, to the developers. It's really coming out of greed, which I disagree with. I don't think pre-orders are really any way, shape, or form greedy. Like, for the most part, the people who are pre-ordering it are going to buy the game anyways. So I don't think it's any way of saying companies making extra profit off of that. if that makes sense. But I think it's beneficial for both the customer and the company, because then they can also look at the demand for the product and adjust their supplies accordingly for that. Yes, there's obviously the argument of, well, what if bots just automatically pre-order? I mean, the PlayStation 5 just had a huge selling out of pre-orders, and that wasn't really so much on bots, but just a little bit of a crazy situation, and probably a topic for another day. But either way, you can make that argument of, well, what if bots are just set up to buy the pre-orders right away? Well, in that case, then you have, like, say you do pre-orders 4 months in advance, you have 4 months to do manual reviews for each one, and not only, first of all, implement actual techniques to stop bots, like, again, CAPTCHA, but also on top of that, sorry, my phone's like going off in the background. Also, on top of that, you have 4 months to adjust it. Like, if we have an issue, I don't know why my phone's freaking out over there. But if you have an issue like we do have today, where pretty close to no legitimate customers were able to pick up the card, they can go through those orders and hopefully fix that issue, and obviously increase supply if they have the time to do it. So I do think that pre-orders are actually a good thing, and I know a lot of people out there hate them, and I'm not saying you have to do them. I really understand if you don't want to do pre-orders. Not only do I say, yes, I understand that, but I fully support you in that decision. I'm not saying you got to do pre-orders, but I think pre-orders are a good thing, and I really don't see them as a bad thing like a ton of people do, and I don't quite understand why. Anyways, guys, I realize that this video is coming close to 12 minutes now, or about to hit 12 minutes exactly, so I am going to kind of stop rambling on. I hope you guys were able to enjoy this video. I really want to get this video out earlier today, but I do not only full-time college student, but also work, and I have very little time, so sorry about that. And I pretty much want to make as many videos as I can, but it's time consuming to a certain extent. So I do want to thank you guys so much if you made it all the way to this part of the video, made it all the way to the end. And I really do hope that this situation gets solved. One thing I do want to add in is I really want to see how they, or if they even, fix this issue with the launch of the 3090. Obviously, the 3090 is not nearly as much of a demand for as the 3080. It's just a much more expensive card, and with that, the demand for it kind of drops down. But I think obviously it's only a week away too. Again, I know I said but 1,000 times, but for the last time, I really want to see how they fix this issue, or if they fix this issue for the launch of the 3090, or if we're going to see the same exact thing happen again. And then more importantly, if they are able to fix it in time for the launch of the 3070, which will probably be, in my opinion, as big of a launch, if not bigger, than the 3080, because there's I mean, that's a pretty good price to performance card right there. Pretty much the same performance level of a 2080 Ti. I mean, there is some benefits to the 2080 Ti. Obviously, it has 11 gigs of GDDR6, whereas the 3070 only has, what is it, 8 gigs. I don't know why I had a brain fart on that. But either way, guys, I'm done rambling on. Thank you again so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. I really hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and hopefully get your hands on some RTX 3080s if that's what you're looking for. But I will see you all later. And once again, guys, thank you so much for watching this video.